So today I have a little story time and I'm so excited to finally share this. As you may have seen, my fiance dug a pond by hand, made a boat, and proposed to me in it. Now if you're just here for the proposal story, here's the timestamp for that. But if you want to hear the whole juicy story of how my fiance and I met and started dating, etc., I'm about to give it to you. I'll throw in pictures where I can, but where photos lack, Dan has graciously decided to draw some of the scenes for us. Because, you know, this dumb cluck didn't think to get a picture of the moment we met. I didn't know we were gonna get married, but someone did. We'll get to that. Now, we all know the tale as old as time: stranger to friend, friend to lover, lover to spouse, or perhaps the more modern trajectory, stranger to Tinder match, etc. Nothing wrong with that. However, in this story, Dan went from stranger to customer. And before you get nervous, I worked retail. In the early winter of 2016, I worked at a craft store, manning the fabric counter under the sarcastic yet pleasant watch of my department head, Karen. She's important. Now at this point, I was grateful for my life. I loved my coworkers, but I desperately wished I had more time to pursue my creative passions. So on my days off, I'd make little movies with my friends, design dresses out of trash, I'd dress up roadkill. How did your food get in my mouth? And at work on the slow shifts, I would hunch over the fabric counter and design dresses on the back of receipt tickets. But most of the shifts were not slow. And the job was this constant monotony of cutting the same old fat quarters for middle-aged lady quilters or the occasional gay man, until one day, there was a glitch in the matrix. This customer who did not belong. The tall, handsome, well-dressed man had an odd air of straightness about him. He approached the counter with a bolt of red felt and asked for 10 yards. I said, "What are you making, a Santa suit?" And he said, "No, a Santa hat." And I thought, oh, sweet, simple, typical man. I informed him 10 yards is a little too much for a hat. And then he told me no, because the model for this hat was a school bus-sized lake monster skeleton, which he sculpted, that hung in the local museum, which he was the curator of. You have my attention. So I cut the boy his 10 yards, he walked away, and then Karen came up behind me and said, "You need to marry that museum guy." And for quite some time, she continued to tell me that I was going to marry the museum guy. Another note about Karen, she would consistently tell me, "You don't belong here. You can do better than this." And I don't know why I'm tearing up. She's not dead or anything, just retired. Anyway, after the museum guy walked away, catastrophe struck. And by catastrophe, I mean things just kept going on as they were. Every few months, this murmur would spread through the store as the man-starved cashier saw his angelic figure pass through the sliding doors. So many girls at that store had a crush on him. But then he'd just buy what he needed and leave. And things just went on that way until one day, a couple years later, when he went from customer to acquaintance. He was making a life-size Puss in Boots and chose our lowly fabric department to supply his cat cloak needs. Now I, who happened to be in the middle of a literal cloak-making phase, was like, "Are you gonna do it hooded, collared, half cloak, full circle?" And he was like, "Do you want to make it?" Now ladies, write this down. Sometimes you gotta make a couple cat cloaks before you can make a wedding dress. You know, metaphorically. In my case, literally. The odds that this will happen to you are not big. But yeah, he hired me to get the job done, and he had a name. It was danchudzinskistudio, which I do know how to pronounce now. It's Chudinsky. I don't fully know how to spell it, but I think it's time to learn. Quick break. Did you like the dress I was just wearing? Well, it happens to be the dress I was wearing the day that I accidentally fell in love with Dan, but that's later on in the story. We'll get to that. I got that dress a few years ago off of ThredUp, and after I filmed this whole story, ThredUp just happened to offer to sponsor this video. And I was like, what in the branded content fairy tale kismet is this? Although it's really not that much of a coincidence that I was wearing a ThredUp outfit during a pivotal life moment, considering 75% of my closet is ThredUp.
But life has changed a lot lately, and my wardrobe needs to keep up with that. For one, I have a new accessory to design outfits around. And for another thing, my day-to-day activities are totally different. Whereas I used to water my fake plants every day, now I water my fake plants while engaged. And this A New Day dress is just elegant enough for such a task. And I used to thrift curtains to make dresses, and now I thrift curtains to make wedding dresses. And this Urban Outfitters dress that I only paid half the price for is versatile enough to be worn for any occasion. It can even be worn while brunette. In the olden days, I'd throw on something cozy to practice piano, but now I have to wear something cool and airy because playing piano's a workout with this rock on my hand. Good thing I have this Gili top and Ishakti skirt, an outfit I practically paid a third of the original cost for. ThredUp always has me covered with a wide variety of high-quality products. Like this altered state dress, originally $78, but on ThredUp only $27.92. And it's very bridal because the word alter is in the brand. It's perfect for any bridal event, really, like betrothed ice skating, or ad portion of your engagement video. They even have items with tags. I knew you'd like that. Like this Billabong top, originally $49.95, ew, but on ThredUp only $16.79. I've basically been wearing this skirt every day because, duh. It goes great with these Schutz boots, which may look tall and intimidating, but they're really easy to go up and down stairs in. Look. And oh my gosh, guys, the new feature, Shop Social, lets you sync an Instagram or Pinterest board to your ThredUp account.
Ugh, finally a perk to living in this age of techno-modernity. Shop ThredUp to find hundreds of brands for a fraction of the price, all in one place. By following that little link to shop my faves and using my code Micarah50 for 50% off your first purchase and free shipping. Thank you, ThredUp, for sponsoring this video, because weddings are expensive. Okay, back to me making this guy a cat cloak. So I go to his office to measure this cat, and I got to know him a little bit. He had lived quite the life. He'd spent some time carving marble in Italy, had assisted in animal autopsies, and worked as a celebrity wax sculpture artist before settling at our town's museum. museum. We also had some bizarre things in common, like loving antique taxidermy while not being into hunting. He actually used to professionally do taxidermy on animals that died of natural causes, and I used to dress up roadkill. We're both creative, we both decorate almost exclusively in Victorian decor. And we had the exact same dream house, this big brick one in my town's historical district that I had been obsessed with since I was 2. I told him, that's my future house, and he said, no, that's my future house. I vowed I'd beat him to it, but he said the same. Cute, right? Seems so obvious. What could go wrong? Now at this point, I had started making videos on this little platform called YouTube, earning roughly $1.50 a week. By the time I finished making the cloak, I was earning more from YouTube than I was at the craft store. I told Dan I was thinking about quitting my job and pursuing YouTube full time, to which he said,
You do YouTube and you can make money from that?
and I said, yeah, and that maybe I'd buy an RV and move to Florida. The part I didn't say out loud though is that I'd stay if he wanted to get to know me better. Then catastrophe really struck. And by catastrophe, I mean he didn't ask me out. So in that moment, I took him and I placed him firmly in the I'm not attracted to this part of my brain, and he stayed there for a long time. So I bought that RV and put in my 2 weeks notice, and then the boss kept putting me on the schedule for like another month, and I'm really non-confrontational, so I just kept coming in until finally Karen was like, you quit, you're not supposed to be here. And that gave me the nerve to go right up to my boss and say, hey, if you don't mind, could you please stop putting me on the schedule since remember I quit? I'm getting pit stains just remembering it. Then I moved to Florida in the camper. It was awesome. Dan messaged me at some point while I was there, and I meant to open it, but I just never got around to it. And I never did cash that check he gave me for the cat cloak, because I just felt like he was overpaying me. It's okay though, I eventually got my money's worth. After a few absolutely amazing months in Kissimmee, catastrophe struck. And by catastrophe, I mean a worldwide pandemic. It was really bad. You should have seen it. Then the AC in my RV went out. So trapped in a hot RV with no one but my newly acquired bird to keep me company, I was like, I might as well just move back to Ohio with my dad, or like in my RV parked in his yard. But then shortly after moving back, I realized I needed a bit more space to sew gigantic gowns. So I bought a little house that was my pride and joy. And that's how Dan went from being my acquaintance to neighbor. And when I first moved in, I was getting a lot of fan mail, so I would just put it in this box, determining to read it someday when I was less overwhelmed. And little did I know that mixed in with those letters was one from Dan, welcoming me to his neighborhood, but I didn't see it for years, so that's how I didn't know we were neighbors. Now, I won't go too deeply into this next part, but the following 2 years were some of the most painful and agonizing. I had the lowest lows of my life, both mentally and physically, with some highlights, of course. But through all of those years, from the time I worked at the craft store to when I was just coming back in for visits, Karen would always say to me, I still think you need to marry that museum guy. And I'd be like,
I don't even really know him anymore.
I haven't seen him in years, blah, 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 blah. Then roll my eyes and go on with my miserable life. Now, after living in that house for a couple of years and going through some painful life events, I decided to start roller skating to process my emotions. Well, one day I was roller skating in my neighborhood and had a bit more momentum than I could handle when a man emerged from his front door and landed right in my path. It was Dan. First time I'd seen him in a couple years, and I just plowed right into him. Apparently, we were neighbors. How cute is that? He congratulated me on some news that he'd seen online, and I had to inform him that as of like a week earlier, that news was no longer true anymore. If you know, you know. Anyway, from that day on, occasionally we ran into each other on walks, and then sometimes we'd finish those walks together, strolling past the Victorian mansions on our dream street, which was tantalizingly close in proximity, but seemed light years away from ever possibly being mine. See, houses on that street rarely came up for sale, and the big brick ones, almost never. I mean, I waited years. So we would just talk and fantasize about what the houses looked like inside, sometimes pretend that we were gonna walk right up to it. Anyway, I guess Dan didn't consider me a real friend at this time because I was just so flaky and inconsistent. And I was flaky and inconsistent, mostly due to poor mental health, but also because I am just so bad with phones and I feel so bad for everyone that's ever tried to get in contact with me, and this is my formal apology. But then also, I wasn't super into the idea of making new guy friends. I'm just more comfortable making female friends. You know, most of my guy friends are grandfathered in from childhood or teen years, but if I'm gonna put in the effort of making a new friend, we better be able to do makeup together and talk about Pretty Little Liars. So we just went on as purely neighbors for a while until the night that I think we officially went from neighbor to friend. On the evening of March 31st, 2023, I had a glorious prank idea. I was gonna take my dad's chickens and swap them with JJ and Courtney's chickens. Who could help me with such a plan at this late hour, I wondered, when I noticed Dan's light was on. It's a big job, and I don't know if I can do it alone. I can't trust anyone who I can trust, because everyone who I trust is gonna be a victim. So I asked a neighbor who doesn't know anyone I know if he can come help. What? I think he has a mask on. Oh, yeah, okay. He didn't take much coercion, and even though we almost got pulled over by a cop with a backseat full of fowl, and ultimately the prank was useless because JJ didn't notice when his chickens changed color, I think Dan had a good time. I now know he even called his mom and told her about it. So we were real friends now, and I truly only saw him as such. Actually, guys, I'm serious. Then I signed a lease on an apartment in New York. I had so many painful memories attached to the house that I once loved, and I just needed a change of scenery. And also, I'm really bad with answering my phone, so I missed all the calls and messages from my pharmacist warning me that there was a mistake in 3 of the medications I was on on were not supposed to be taken together. It caused me ear bleeds, incessant coughing, extreme fatigue, made everything I ate taste good, and made me really impulsive. Anyway, I was back from New York on a visit when my realtor called. A big brick house on my dream street was finally for sale. Not the big brick house, but probably the closest I'll ever get. And it was a shockingly good deal, but perhaps that was due to the upstairs having essentially no flooring, or maybe because of all the literal golf ball craters in the walls, or maybe priced in was all the flying mice that I had yet to meet. In any case, I wanted nothing more than to restore this home to its gilded glamour. Now, still being in something of a pharmacologically induced manic episode, I agreed to buy it within hours of first hearing about it, after just signing that lease in New York. But on a more serious side note, the timing actually ended up being something of a blessing because my stepdad's cancer took a turn for the worse and I wanted to be around more, and my friend in New York needed a place to live, so she was able to stay in the apartment for a while. Now, while home on that visit, Dan had a presentation. He was showing off his big foot at a museum, and I invited my brother's girlfriend, hoping to set them up.
My brother's very amicable ex-girlfriend. I am not so psychotic as to try to set up my brother's current girlfriend with someone.
Thinking, oh, she's nice, he's nice, they might hit it off. But then on the way there, she informed me that she was going to move to France, so that was off the table. So we get to Dan's presentation. Here's a picture from that night, and I don't know if it was hearing him talk about his passions, or seeing the PowerPoint pictures of him sculpting, or just how good he looked in comparison to his sculpture, or the trifecta of medications. But I became attracted to him very suddenly, like the love bug crawled up and bit me. Dan. I wasn't gonna act on it though. Too risky, too scared. Then on the way home, Francis was like, "Did you see how he looked at you?" And I was like, "What? No way." But apparently he had been interested in me for a while. First he was hesitant to go for it because I was kind of flaky, and then he was hesitant to go for it because he thought I was moving to New York forever. But little did he know, I just bought that brick house. So one evening, when he still thought I was just back on a visit from New York, I asked if he wanted to go on a walk on Dream Street, like we had so many times before. Only this time, I waltzed through one of the picket fences and right through the yard, and he just whisper yelled at me, "This isn't worth going to jail for." But I just kept going, and reluctantly he followed. I make it all the way to the door, start turning the knob, and allegedly he was about to throw me over his shoulder and drag me away when I said, "It's okay, it's mine, I bought it." And I'll never forget the look on his face when he stepped back, took in the house, and said, "You've come a long way from the craft store." And there was no jealousy, no attempts to humble me, just the acknowledgement of where I came from. I don't know why that made such an impact, but I think it will forever be one of the most meaningful moments of my life. Now, how did he go from friend to boyfriend? Honestly, I don't know. I don't know how this happened or exactly when it happened, but at some point while watching Dracula, I had this awful coughing fit. And when I came out of it, we were holding hands. And me, being sort of skittish and scared of love, wrote him a list of 13 reasons why it would never work. And why I had to choose 13 reasons. I should have just come up with another one, got rid of one. Anyway, now the stuff on the list was like,
You're really clean and I'm really messy.
"You're a morning person and I'm a night person," you know, real life or death crap. And he'll tell you that the moment I handed him the list was the moment he knew that we would be together forever. And I guess we became official when one of his relatives called and was gonna try to set him up with a girl, and he told her,
Oh no, I have a girlfriend.
and I, for a second, was like real sad. I almost puked. Like, who is this chick? I bet she's super cool, can read a clock really fast, and knows her left from her right without pretending to hold a pencil. And then I was like, wait a second, am I your girlfriend? And he was like, yeah, if you want to be. And I was suddenly okay with that. Now, around that time, I went to refill my prescriptions, and my pharmacist was like, yeah, I've been trying to get a hold of you. You're not taking these 3 things at the same time, are you? And I was like, yeah. She was like, have you been having any weird side effects? And I was like, not really. So I stopped taking them, and then my ear bleeds cleared up, and I was still attracted to Dan. Like, how could I not be? He's the most creative, talented person I've ever met. He's so intelligent, he's empathetic, he never smells bad, but still, I held my breath for the whole first year of the relationship, waiting for that inevitable moment when the mask would drop and he'd stop being nice to me. But it never came. He was still nice to me. Still cooked for me, still called me every lunch break. Eventually, we started collaborating, making things together, traveling to art exhibits for his work. He loved being involved in my projects. I love being involved in his. And guys, he likes to wear costumes. Every year from the time I was a child, I would plan what I wanted in a future husband. And some preferences would change from year to year, but likes wearing costumes was a constant. Such a dream come true. And we also do all the normal couple stuff. We play Fortnite together. We work on my house together. We rescue snakes together. We befriended the last surviving prisoner of Alcatraz together. Got chased through a parking lot by an elk together. And he just actually wants to be around me, which has been the most bizarre thing. Like, I don't have to negotiate or beg for quality time. It's been the best.
And of course, we don't agree on everything. Like, I don't believe in Santa Claus, and he does like The Greatest Showman, but it's okay that he's wrong because we love each other.
Okay, so here it finally is, how he went from boyfriend to fiance. The proposal. Now, obviously, I knew Dan was digging a pond. This thing is like 30 by 50 feet, and he dug it by hand, so it took several grueling months. But that wasn't shocking to me or anything, because men like digging, maybe. Also, as you may have noticed, he's really into frogs, so I was like, oh, frog pond, go off, king, who might have questioned? So he finishes digging this pond in summer. Then he's rushedly planting a jillion things around it, and they have to be planted in fall in order to bloom in spring. And I was like, okay, boys will be boys, I guess. Then spring comes, and he starts spending an unusual amount of time in the studio, and when I asked to see progress pictures of the sculptures he's working on, they would always look exactly the same as the last time I had seen them. And that's when I thought, Okay, he's losing his touch. He's not as good of a sculptor as he used to be. But now I know he was actually busy working on this.
She might not look like much now, but I promise you this will become one of your favorite boats. You just helped me to load this foam piece. Sorry for the deception. I'm being sneaky. I added a bench. Pretty happy with how that came out. We're gonna get ready to paint. First layer of paint starting to come together.
Now, side plot, I wasn't allowed to watch Disney princess movies till I was like 16, 17, and when I did, I became obsessed, specifically with Ariel and Rapunzel. More specifically with these two scenes, which are some of the best in cinematic history. So obviously, when Dan finished the pond, I had the thought, how perfect would it be if he proposed to me on it? But I was like, no, I'm not gonna say anything to anyone because I want him to propose how he wants to propose. Now, one fine day in April, we had planned to go out to a nice dinner, and he usually picks me up super punctually. So when he was a few minutes late, I texted him and I said, are you coming? Or he just responded, no. Meet here. Now this was unusual, but not like sending off any alarm bells. Then when I arrived, he was just standing at the end of his driveway, dressed super nice, just waiting for me. And that's when I thought, oh, so you have time to stand there and wait for me, but you don't have time to pick me up? Then I looked behind him and the pond was surrounded by candles and there was the most beautiful boat in the middle. And then I was like, oh, this is happening. So he leads me to this boat. We get in. It was a little shaky, and apparently he had never tested it with two people before. So later, when asked what was your backup plan if the boat tipped over, he answered,
Titanic proposal.
So now we're in this little boat, and he hands me the best chocolates in the world. Don't worry, I'm not gonna gatekeep. Peanut butter meltways from Deech's Chocolate in Findlay, Ohio. And then I ate the chocolates while this instrumental of Kiss the Girl played, and then he just starts looking at me expectantly, like he wants me to hurry up and finish eating. But remember, these were peanut butter chocolates. So I was like, do you have anything to wash this down? And he's like, no. So I chomped a little longer, and then I am a really messy eater, so he spent some time cleaning off my face, and then he said some really sweet things and reached behind his back, pulled out a ring, and asked me to marry him. And I said, what? And then he asked again, and I said yes. It is a beautiful emerald ring, which is great twofold because one, it's my birthstone, and two, now I'm covered for every St. Patrick's Day for the rest of eternity. You can't pinch me. So he proposed to me, and then we just sat there for a while, crying, beaming, hugging, and then I was like, oh my gosh, we need to get some pictures. So I called my dad, who did not know yet, because my one big stipulation about a proposal was no one could know before me. That was my nightmare. Literally, I'd had nightmares from the time I was like 12 of getting engaged, and then my friends and family popping out and being like, surprise! We've known the whole time, and we've been keeping this from you. And then I'd wake up like, to each their own. I understand a lot of people would love that, but I am the queen of FOMO, and I don't want to not be there when you find out I'm getting engaged. I want to be able to tell you. So yeah, he nailed that. So now I have to get my dad to Dan's house to get him to take engagement photos without telling my dad that we're engaged. So on the phone, I say, hey Dad, can you come to Dan's house? We caught an animal and we don't know what it is. And that man asked no questions. He got there in 2 minutes flat. But when he arrived, I was like, could you take some engagement pictures? Oh my God. He was so excited. He did a really good job covering up his disappointment that we didn't actually discover a new species of animal.
Congratulations!
We made a boat and a pond! So my dad took these pictures, which I think are great for being taken on an iPhone, but he didn't realize that there were candles everywhere. So he kneels into one of these candles and it burns a hole in his pants. And he shoots up screaming and flailing, get it off of me, get it off of me. Because apparently he thought it was a brown recluse and his friend had just lost his leg to a brown recluse like a week earlier. So it's actually very sad, but was also one of the funniest things I've ever seen. And we're stuck in a boat trying to tell him, you're on fire. And eventually he did get the flame slapped out and we all lived happily ever after. After that, we went to Courtney's house and told her. She screamed. I have a clip of the scream. And then Courtney reminds me of something crazy. When I was 17, she took this video interviewing me about my dream proposal.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say hello to all of you watching this in the future.
Tell us what you really want.
We will be in a rowboat. They'll probably have really good, in the future, music systems that even though they're small, have nice speakers. And we'll be eating a bunch of really delicious, maybe fancier things. And then he says, will you marry me?
And she and Dan both swear they did not communicate about this at all. He just knows me that well. After telling Courtney, we called my mom and asked if she wanted to play Scrabble, and one thing about my mom is she is always down to clown for a late night Scrabble game, so we go over there.
So she'll go first. She's gonna have 7 letter word.
I have a 7-letter word. I go first and I write the word finally.
Yeah. Hold on.
Dang.
This doesn't count because your letter's upside down.
And I turn the board to Dan, and he writes engaged.
Nice laying out the board for us.
Yeah, we'll try to open it up a little bit here for you. All right.
And she looks at it and then starts tallying up the score.
14, 15, 16, 17.
And after like a minute, figured it out and then was excited for us.
Finally engaged. Aww. What? Oh my God. Are you really? Yes.
But the fourth person I told, and possibly the most excited, was Karen. As in, you need to marry that museum guy, Karen. 10 years after she first said it, it's finally coming true. Then I texted the proposal pictures to the rest of my friends, and most of them thought it was AI and responded, haha, that looks so realistic. The curse of living in this modern age. It's okay though, because I'm happy. If you're curious about what became of the pond, well, it's flourishing. Word got around to the locals, now it's a hot spot for squirrels, birds, ducks, one snapping turtle, and lots of frogs. We also stocked it with fish and enjoy lounging on our floaties on hot summer days. And did I mention I'm so happy? Like, you guys have no idea how much it meant to me that somebody thought I was worth that amount of effort. This is for me! Freaking princess boat and my favorite chocolates. But it goes so far beyond the pond or the princess boat. I'm talking the little things. Asking how my day was. Asking, will I get to see you today? Making sure I get my electrolytes, or drawing pictures for this video. Final note, if you're a girl and your husband or fiance did not propose to you in this way, that's okay. This is unusual, and not every guy understands plumbing to that extent. But if you're with a guy or girl who doesn't put any effort into you, if you're with someone who makes you cry once a week or more, just get out. I promise there is better out there. And that better might even look like being alone for a while, because it's better to be alone than to let someone who doesn't care that much about you have that much power over your emotions. You'll hurt like crazy for a season, but just call it. And I say that with understanding and so much heaviness in my heart for you. I know it's awkward when I get serious, but I care. But actually the real moral of this story is always listen to your middle-aged coworkers, because they can apparently see your future. Thank you for listening to me blabber on. Stay tuned to watch me make a wedding dress. I literally have no idea what it's gonna look like. I've never been married. I've never made a wedding dress that isn't out of diapers. So feel free to send suggestions. I might put up an Instagram vote or two during the design process, so I'll have to block Dan, who I love. I love you so much, Dan. Thank you for giving me a beautiful story to tell. Now, if you're feeling happy right now, or sad, irate, any emotion, really, why don't you express that through fashion? Shop ThredUp to find hundreds of brands for a fraction of the price, all in one place. Follow the link in my description to shop my faves and use the code Micarah50 for 50% off your first purchase and free shipping.